If you want to make an effective contribution in a meeting, then one of the most important things is to make sure that you structure that contribution in a way that makes it easy for the other people to follow, easy for them to know when you've finished so that they can process it, and clear so that they get an impression that you know what you're talking about and are a logical, structured and reliable thinker. So in this video, I want to suggest to you a number of structured response formats, simple formulas you can use to structure your contribution in any meeting. When I started my professional career, I was a management consultant, and I noticed that when I was called upon to make a contribution in a meeting, sometimes I didn't feel confident, and it didn't look to me like the people around me were really convinced by what I was saying. And yet there were other people, more experienced colleagues, who could make a short, succinct contribution to the meeting. People would listen to them attentively, would nod in agreement, would make notes, and would be convinced by what they were saying. And I wanted some of that. So what did I do? I started to notice how they structured their contributions. But it wasn't until I was reading an article in a trade magazine where the author talked about a simple formula for making a point that I thought maybe there's some science to this. So I made a note of that simple formula, and then I started making notes of the formulas that my colleagues used. I collected them and I started to call them structured response formulas. And I kept the best ones, the ones that I found most useful, in my notebook. So that when I was called upon to make a contribution, or when I wanted to add something to the meeting, I could glance down at my notebook, remind myself of the structure, put my thoughts into that structure, and speak clearly, speak succinctly, make my point, and stop. And in this video, I'm going to give you my structured response formulas, and I'm going to give you 8 of the very best. The first one is ideal in situations where someone's got a problem and you've got a solution. Salespeople love this one, and I call it the pain and pill response format, because your format is broken into 2 halves. A few sentences describing the problem, the pain that your audience is feeling, and then a few sentences suggesting how you recommend that they can put it right, the solution you have, the pill. The second formula is ideal for when you want the meeting to make a particular decision. You've thought it through, you've got the right answer, and you want to advocate it. And it's the bid format. The first step in the bid format is to recap the background very quickly. The second is to summarize the issues that throws up. What are the key points on which a decision hangs? And then thirdly, spell out the decision you recommend and why you recommend it. My third example is perfect for when you've got one single clear point to make and you've got some evidence to back it up, and it's called PEP, P-E-P. State the position or the point of view or your preference. Then give an example or some evidence to back it up. And then when you've given your example or the evidence, close it down by reiterating the point. My fourth format is more complex, and it's for when you have a point to make, but also you want the meeting to not only adopt the point, but act on it in a particular way. And the acronym is PRESS, and the P stands for the point. Open with the point you want to make, and then R, spell out the reason why you think that's true. And again, the E is for evidence or for examples that back up your point and endorse your reason. Then S, summarize what you said in a line or two. And finally, the final S is to make a suggestion, to advocate what you think the meeting needs to do, or the decision it needs to make, or the position it needs to adopt. This next structured response format is particularly good where you've got a point of view, but it may be a controversial one or hard for the meeting to grasp or agree with at the outset. And it's simple. It's 3 P's. P, P, P. P for position. What is the position we're in? Spell out what everybody already knows. Not in any great detail, not at any great length because you'll bore them, but make sure they understand that you understand where we are. Then the second P is pressure. Given that position, what pressure does that create? What complications are there? What dangers are there? Why do we have to act? What is the thing that's pushing us? What's important in that position that creates some sort of a tension? And then when we've got that tension, that pressure, the final P is the point of view. Given that tension, given that pressure, it must beg a question. What are we going to do about it? Why is that an issue? How are we going to resolve it? And your point of view is the answer to that question. So position, pressure leads to a question, and the answer to that question is your point of view. Hook, line and sinker is my 6th structured response format. It takes the pain and the pill format and gives it a little bit more strength. It's also very much liked by salespeople. It's really great for selling a solution. The hook is the problem. It's what we're discussing. It's what's causing us trouble. The line is the solution that you're proposing. And the sinker is the reason why that solution will solve the problem. It's the resolution. My 7th structured response format is perfect for when you've got a complicated solution and you want to present your forensic analysis of that situation. And therefore, the acronym that I use is CSI for forensic analysis. C stands for context. What's happening? Take a few moments, a couple of sentences to spell out the situation as you understand it so that everyone is clear about the context within which you're going to make your remarks. But you're going to add value by telling them more than just the context. You're going to point out the subtleties that are relevant to really understanding the situation. So you're going to go beyond the big, important things that everybody knows and focus in on a few details, the subtle details, that really lead to a greater understanding. And then I stands for insight. What do those subtleties tell you about what events really mean? My final structured response format is perfect for situations when something has happened and you need to respond in some way and you've got a recommendation. And the simple acronym I give is EIOU. So E stands for the event. Summarize what's happened. I stands for implications. Given what's happening, what does that mean? What could happen as a result of it? What's the consequences for us as an organization or for our client or whoever we're talking about? O stands for options. Given what's happened and what is going to happen as a consequence of that, what could we do? What are our options and the relative merits of them? And then U stands for urging. This is where you urge the meeting to adopt one of the options and you give a clear reason why it is the favoured option. So EIOU is a great way to present the solution to a situation that has come about because of something that has just happened. So there you have 8 structured response formats. What I recommend you do is you download the guide to those structured response formats so that you've got them ready to print off. Think about the kinds of meetings you go to and the kinds of conversations that are likely to arise, and therefore the sorts of contributions that you may want to make. What you'll find is that a small number of those, 2 or 3 of them, are likely to be very useful to you. Identify which they are and write them out in your notebook so that when you go to a meeting, if you need to make a contribution, you can glance down at your notebook at the different formats, pick one, remind yourself what it is, and structure your response accordingly. Eventually, it will become second nature. But until then, use your tip sheet as a check. When you can make a structured response in your meetings, putting across your point clearly and succinctly, then you'll get better results and better outcomes from your meetings. Please give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. There's loads more great management courses content to come, so subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to make sure you don't miss anything. I'll see you in the next one, and in the meantime, keep learning.